Emily Carver was the golden girl of Elmridge High, smart, beautiful, and full of promise. Rick Delaney was the town's most trusted figure, a beloved football coach with a spotless reputation. But behind closed doors, their secret affair spiraled into a deadly obsession, ending in one of the most shocking murders the quiet town had ever seen. What began as whispers turned into tragedy, and the truth left a community shattered. Elmridge, Pennsylvania was the kind of town where people left their doors unlocked and everybody knew your name. Life moved slowly, predictably, and no one expected the worst, especially not in a place where the biggest event of the week was the high school football game. The Elmridge Eagles were more than just a team. They were a symbol of community pride. And leading them was Coach Rick Delaney, a man nearly as iconic as the school itself. At 48, Rick was tall, broad-shouldered, and wore a whistle like a badge of honor. He had coached for over 20 years, taking a losing team and transforming it into a regional powerhouse. Parents trusted him. Students looked up to him. To most, he was a dedicated mentor who shaped boys into men. Rick's dedication didn't stop at the football field. He volunteered at car washes, led summer training camps, and even gave pep talks at local elementary schools. No one suspected anything beyond his professional devotion. He was a family man, married to his high school sweetheart Lynn, and together they lived in a modest home just a few blocks from the school. It was the kind of life that seemed simple, safe, and enviable, until cracks began to show. Emily Carver was the opposite of Coach Delaney in age but similar in reputation. At 17, she had already made a name for herself in Elmridge. She was the head cheerleader, an honor student, and voted most likely to succeed by her junior class. Her blonde ponytail and bright smile had become a familiar sight on the sidelines every Friday night. Teachers loved her, younger students wanted to be her, and parents saw her as the kind of girl they hoped their daughters would grow up to be. But behind Emily's polished exterior was a young girl wrestling with pressure. Expectations weighed heavily on her shoulders, and the stress of being perfect sometimes felt unbearable. That's when she began to form a connection with someone who seemed to understand, someone older, someone who listened. At first it was subtle. Emily stayed a little later after cheer practice, waiting around while the football team wrapped up drills. Coach Delaney started giving her compliments about her leadership, her focus, her potential. Nothing inappropriate at first, just enough to make her feel seen. When her car wouldn't start one rainy evening, he offered her a ride home. That became a routine. Sometimes they stopped for coffee or talked in the parking lot before she went inside. It was easy to pass off as harmless. He was her coach. He cared about all his students. But people began to notice. Her teammates started whispering about how much time she spent with him, how she got out of certain practices or received leniency when others didn't. Some of the other cheerleaders laughed it off as a crush, something innocent, but others felt uneasy. There was a look in Coach Delaney's eyes sometimes, too lingering, too intense. Still, no one said anything. Not her friends, not the teachers, and certainly not her parents, who trusted the school and its staff implicitly. After all, nothing could happen in Elmridge. Not something like that. By the end of fall semester, Emily had changed. She was quieter, moodier. She stopped hanging out after games and started ignoring texts from friends. Her grades slipped slightly, and her usual energy seemed to vanish. People chalked it up to senior year burnout or stress over college applications. But Emily was hiding something. Something big. And Coach Delaney, the man everyone thought they knew, was hiding something too. What no one realized was that a secret was festering just beneath the surface of their perfect little town. A secret that would soon unravel everything. The rumors started quietly, like a whisper on the wind. At first it was just a few students noticing that Emily Carver and Coach Delaney seemed unusually close. Then came the late-night sighting that changed everything. A local mother, driving home from her shift at the diner, swore she saw them together at a gas station 30 miles outside Elmridge. It was nearly midnight. Emily was in sweatpants, Coach Delaney in a worn hoodie, and they were parked behind the building talking closely, heads bowed, too close to be casual. By the next morning, the entire school was buzzing. Both Emily and Coach Delaney denied anything was happening. He claimed he was helping her with college recommendations and that the meeting had been a chance encounter. Emily stuck to the story, insisting they just ran into each other and had talked briefly. The school principal called it a misunderstanding. There was no investigation, no consequences. Life in Elmridge went on, but something had changed. A seed of doubt had been planted. What no one saw were the layers underneath. Emily and Rick had been involved for months. It began with innocent conversations, a bond formed over shared stress and private goals. But it didn't take long for that bond to shift into something more intimate. They started meeting in secret, quiet places outside town, dimly lit diners where no one knew them, and once even in the back room of the athletic facility. He told her he loved her, promised her the world. She believed him. Rick Delaney, trapped in a stagnant marriage and facing the reality of his aging career, saw Emily as a second chance. She was young, beautiful, full of hope. She made him feel alive again. He began making plans, talked about quitting coaching, leaving Lynn and starting over somewhere new, somewhere far from Elmridge. Emily was swept up in it. The attention was intoxicating, and for a time it felt like something real. But the excitement came with a cost. Emily had to lie constantly, to her parents, her friends, even to herself. She started skipping school events, avoiding her usual hangouts, and isolating herself from anyone who might ask too many questions. Her best friend Rachel noticed the change and grew increasingly concerned. When Emily stopped responding to texts altogether, Rachel became suspicious. She remembered the rumors, the whispers, the late-night gas station sighting. Then she made a discovery. While grabbing a jacket from Emily's locker before practice, Rachel saw a crumpled piece of paper stuffed in the side. It was a receipt, 2 hotel stays under a fake name, but the handwriting in the margins was unmistakably Rick's. Alongside the receipt was a folded napkin with a heart drawn on it, and the word "forever" written in smudged ink. Rachel froze. It wasn't just gossip anymore. This was real. She didn't know what to do. Confronting Emily might push her further away. Telling the school could risk backlash. So she kept it to herself, hoping it would blow over or that Emily would come to her senses. But instead of ending, the relationship grew more obsessive. Rick began calling Emily constantly, sending her long, emotional messages, and becoming jealous when she talked to boys her own age. He told her she didn't need anyone else, that he was the only one who truly cared about her. It was no longer a romance, it was control masked as affection. By winter, Emily was visibly anxious, often glancing over her shoulder in the hallways and jumping when her phone buzzed. She was trying to pull away, but Rick wouldn't let go. And in a town like Elmridge, where image mattered more than truth, no one was ready to see what was happening right in front of them. The relationship that had begun in secrecy was starting to crack, and the danger was just beginning to show. By the start of the new year, the strain of the relationship was beginning to show on both sides. Rick Delaney, once the picture of discipline and control, was unraveling. His once organized coaching sessions became chaotic. He snapped at players, missed meetings, and stopped preparing game strategies with the same intensity he was known for. Other coaches started to talk. Something was off. At home, things were worse. His wife, Lynn, noticed he was staying out later and locking his phone with new passwords. He stopped sleeping in their bed and claimed to be overwhelmed with work. But Lynn had lived with Rick long enough to know when he was lying. She began checking his emails, his car, even the laundry basket. What she found didn't confirm everything, but it confirmed enough. stray receipts, the smell of perfume that wasn't hers, and a hotel key card she knew didn't belong to her. Emily, meanwhile, was spiraling. What once felt exciting had turned suffocating. Rick had become possessive, texting constantly, asking for photos and accusing her of seeing other boys. He didn't like her talking to male classmates, didn't want her going out with friends, and became angry whenever she took too long to reply. He said he loved her, but his love felt more like a cage. She tried to end it. In small ways at first, ignoring his messages, making excuses, skipping their secret meetings. But every time she pulled away, Rick pushed harder. He sent long, desperate texts in the middle of the night, begged to see her, threatened to hurt himself if she left him. Emily felt trapped between fear and guilt. If she told anyone, it would ruin his life. If she stayed, it might ruin hers. The pressure reached a boiling point in March. Emily's parents discovered one of the burner phones hidden in her closet. The messages were unmistakably romantic, some of them clearly from someone older. Her mother immediately called the school, demanding answers. But without proof of who sent the messages or evidence of physical contact, the administration hesitated. Rick denied everything once again, insisting Emily was going through a phase, that she was confused, emotional, maybe even making things up for attention. It was his word against hers. The school did nothing. Emily's parents, frustrated and scared, threatened to move her to another district. That night, Emily told Rick it had to end. She couldn't keep lying, couldn't live like this. She needed her life back. That decision sealed her fate. From that point forward, Rick's behavior turned darker. He began showing up where he knew she'd be. Outside her house, near her part-time job, even at the local library where she studied. He never approached her in public, just watched from a distance. She noticed, and she was terrified. Friends tried to intervene, but Emily brushed them off. She didn't want anyone else dragged into it. She just wanted to finish the school year, graduate, and leave Elmridge behind. But Rick couldn't let go. He had given up everything in his mind, his career, his marriage, his reputation. In his eyes, Emily belonged to him. If he couldn't have her, no one could. Then came the night of the senior bonfire. It was a beloved tradition in Elmridge, held every year at the edge of the woods behind the school. Students gathered to celebrate their final year, roast marshmallows, and share memories. Emily said she might come, but she never arrived. Her friends figured she'd changed her mind. Her parents thought she was with them. But when her phone went dark and she never came home, alarm bells went off. By morning, panic had replaced confusion. Calls went unanswered. Texts were left on read, and no one could find Emily. The search began, first casually, then desperately. Flyers went up, news alerts were issued, and volunteers combed the surrounding woods. Emily Carver had vanished, and deep down the town of Elmridge knew this wasn't a runaway. Something far worse had happened. 3 days after Emily Carver vanished, a hiker stumbled upon something he would never forget. While walking a wooded trail just outside Elmridge, he spotted a glimpse of red and white through the trees, cheerleading colors. As he moved closer, he saw a body, partially covered in leaves, motionless at the base of a shallow slope. It was Emily. Her once bright uniform was torn and stained with blood. Her hands were bruised, her face scratched, and her phone shattered lay nearby. She had fought hard. The brutality of the scene left no doubt. This was not an accident. It was murder. News of the discovery shattered Elmridge. What had started as whispers and rumors now stood as a chilling reality. The girl everyone thought had a bright future had been taken in the most violent way possible. The town went into mourning. Candlelight vigils were held and the school closed for a day of remembrance. Parents clutched their children tighter and students walked through the halls in stunned silence. But as grief settled over the community, questions began to rise. Who would want to harm Emily Carver? The police launched a full investigation. Given Emily's recent behavior and the known tension surrounding her, it didn't take long for them to turn their focus toward Coach Rick Delaney. While he maintained a calm, cooperative front, his alibi for the night of the bonfire was vague. He claimed he had been home watching TV and fell asleep early, but his phone told a different story. Text logs showed he had messaged Emily repeatedly that night, messages pleading with her to meet him, apologizing, then turning angry when she didn't respond. One message sent just after 9 p.m. read simply, "You said forever." The final ping from Emily's phone came at 9:23 p.m., placing her near the woods behind the school, the same woods where her body was later found. Delaney's phone pinged in the same area only minutes earlier. With a warrant, investigators searched his truck. In the back seat, they found long strands of blonde hair, later confirmed to be Emily's. More damning was the discovery of blood on the truck's carpet, hidden beneath a floor mat. It was a match. Still, Delaney denied involvement. He admitted he had met with Emily earlier that week, said they had a difficult conversation, but insisted he hadn't seen her the night she vanished. The final blow came when officers searched his garage. Hidden in a toolbox was a pair of gloves with traces of blood and a burner phone that had been used to send anonymous, threatening messages to Emily in the weeks leading up to her death, messages no one else had known about. One read, "If you talk, we both go down." Another, "I gave you everything. You owe me." The evidence was overwhelming. Rick Delaney was arrested and charged with the murder of Emily Carver. News spread fast. Parents who once praised him now turned away in horror. His players, some of whom had seen him as a second father, were left speechless. His wife filed for divorce within days. At the arraignment, he showed no emotion. The courtroom was packed with townspeople, some in shock, others burning with quiet rage. Emily's parents sat in the front row clutching each other's hands, broken by the loss and the betrayal. How could a man they had trusted with their daughter's future be the one to destroy it? The town of Elmridge, once built on tradition and trust, was now shaken to its core. What had been dismissed as gossip was revealed to be truth. And behind the polished bleachers and school spirit was a dark reality. No one had truly known the man they called Coach. Justice was now in motion, but no sentence could bring Emily back. Rick Delaney's trial began in late summer, just weeks after what should have been Emily Carver's high school graduation. The courtroom was packed every day. Reporters lined the hallways, and residents of Elmridge filled the seats, hoping for answers, closure, or at the very least, justice. The case gripped not just the town but soon spread to national headlines. A beloved coach, a murdered cheerleader, a secret affair that ended in tragedy. It was the kind of story that didn't happen in quiet places like Elmridge, until it did. The prosecution wasted no time laying out their case. They presented evidence piece by piece: surveillance footage, text messages, GPS data, and forensic reports. They showed the jury how Rick had become increasingly unstable, how he'd manipulated Emily into secrecy, and how he'd used threats and emotional blackmail to keep her from walking away. Most damning of all was the physical evidence. Emily's blood found in his truck and garage, the gloves tucked away in his toolbox, and the burner phone with messages that only someone deeply familiar with her life could have written. Rick's defense painted a different picture. They admitted the affair but claimed it was consensual, born from mutual affection. They argued that Rick was heartbroken, not violent. They suggested someone else could have killed Emily, perhaps an angry classmate, a jealous peer, or even a stranger. But their claims were thin, unsupported, and fell apart under the weight of the facts. Rick never took the stand. and in the eyes of many that silence spoke louder than anything he could have said. After a tense and emotional 2-week trial, the jury returned a verdict. Guilty on all counts. First-degree murder. Unlawful relationship with a minor. Evidence tampering. The courtroom erupted into a mix of relief and sorrow. Emily's mother wept silently while her father sat motionless, staring at the man who had stolen their daughter's future. Rick Delaney showed no reaction as the sentence was read. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. The town of Elmridge would never be the same. The high school football program was suspended indefinitely. Alumni distanced themselves from their former coach. The trophy cases were covered, and the field that once echoed with cheers fell silent. For months afterward, no one could walk the halls of the school without remembering what had been lost. But the case didn't end with Rick's conviction. During the investigation, detectives uncovered more than anyone had expected. As they combed through Rick's old devices, emails, and social media accounts, they found messages to other girls, past students, some as young as 15. He had been grooming students for years, hiding behind his respected position and manipulating the trust placed in him. None had spoken out, perhaps out of fear, confusion, or shame. Emily wasn't the first. She was just the one who dared to pull away. The discovery shocked Elmridge all over again. A special task force was created to investigate further. More victims were contacted. More stories came to light. Rick Delaney had hidden behind his reputation, his authority, and the blind faith of a town that never thought to question him. That blind faith had cost a young girl her life. Emily Carver's memory was honored with a scholarship fund for young women pursuing careers in criminal justice and education. Her cheer uniform was retired and placed in a sealed case near the school auditorium. Each year, a candlelight memorial is held on the date of her disappearance, where students, teachers, and families gather to speak her name and remember her for who she was before everything changed. The story of Rick Delaney and Emily Carver is more than a cautionary tale. It is a haunting reminder that sometimes evil hides behind a friendly smile, a trusted name, and a polished whistle. And by the time it's exposed, the damage is already done.